Hi, how are you? I am doing fantastic. I'm actually a bit tired because, as you know, I work 1 week on and then I have 3 weeks off. And these 3 weeks are just being insane, when it's summer and you have so much going on. So I have been to a classic car race where we camped in the rain for 3 nights. This week, the Danish king and queen came to my town and we went to see that. That was a whole day thing where we were so close we could almost touch them. It was fantastic with horses and the royal ship. It was just amazing. And next week, we're going to Oslo in Norway to visit a friend. And then we come back. The kids are coming for 3 days and then we are off to work in England again. So I feel like I've hardly landed before I'm going off again. So I'm almost looking forward to having a bit more of a quiet autumn. Anyways, I got inspired for this episode by a post on LinkedIn. Another vet pointed out how stressful it is, obviously, to get criticized by owners, but then how it's taken to another level when we get criticized by other vets. And I have plenty of examples of this. And I wrote a post a little while ago about a personal example where I got absolutely slaughtered by another vet because I had missed some bladder stone on an X-ray. So as you know, I work overnight. I work as an ER and we get referrals from other clinics. We cover their overnights. And a dog was sent to us because I think their own vets had seen him on and off for urinary problems. He had dysuria and some blood in the urine, and they had given antibiotics. It hadn't helped. And then now he was completely blocked, like typical Friday afternoon, and they just sent him straight to us. And I did an X-ray and somehow missed some bladder stones. Now, after I then got pointed out, though, bladder stones, I could see them. But for some reason that night, my eyes did not see them. And I unblocked the dog. We stabilized him, sent some urine off to analyze it. And then we sent him back to the own vet so they can continue to work up with the X-rays and everything. Now, then I went back home and forgot about this dog. And then my clinical director sent me an email saying that the referring vet had complained about me, not taken it to a Royal College or anything. I had sent some emails to our clinic saying basically absolutely slandering me basically for having missed these stones, which I can understand, right? It was a mistake and it should be pointed out. But then he went to, well, basically my clinical director had edited his emails because they were being downright cruel and incredibly criticizing from a bit of a nasty way, which I think was completely unnecessary. Where he then criticized, like, why hadn't I missed this and the bloods and why this and all the other points he made didn't make any sense and were not right. And I had to sit at home in my weeks off and answer all his basically stupid questions that didn't make any sense, where he was just trying to, I don't know, I guess point out that he was a better vet than me, or just pointing out how bad a vet I was, when honestly the only mistake I had made was to miss these bladder stones on the X-ray. So I hadn't found a definite diagnosis for the dog, but I had stabilized him. We had him on fluids. We had drained his bladder, and everything was fine. So I want to say, when we give feedback as vets, like, what kind of spirit are we giving it from? So there's two perspectives, right? When vets judge other vets, and there's the vet that's giving the feedback, and then there's a vet who's receiving the feedback. And there's a lot going on in the brains of those two vets. And I just want to split it up a bit because I know it can be incredibly triggering. I was not happy getting an email on my weeks off about this vet just making a lot of complaints about me that didn't make any sense. So I got really triggered, and I was so happy I already had coaching, so I could kind of talk myself down, sit a bit with the discomfort. There was a lot of shame because I felt like, why did I not see these? And once I saw them, then it's like Wally, isn't it? Once you see it, then you cannot unsee it. So I want to break it up a bit and just to kind of make it a bit easier for, if you're giving feedback, like, well, what reason are you doing it? And also if you're receiving feedback and if it's landing really hard, like, why could that be? So if we look at the perspective of the vets that might be given the feedback, you want to check in with yourself, like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you genuinely think, okay, there's been a mistake here, and we should probably try and find out why, because maybe this other vet has never seen this before. And for example, if I don't know about bladder stones, for some reason I've missed it my whole life, it might be a good idea for me to learn about it, so next time I don't miss it, right? So that would be a good way of like giving feedback. Hey, I got the dog back. I don't know why you didn't notice those bladder stones, but there were some. So maybe next time you might want to do something about it. You might want to correct your x-rays or whatever it is you want to say, right? So that would be the genuine good reason to give feedback, right? Because there's a constructive feedback. But sometimes I think if we don't feel that confident ourselves, we might give feedback with this little kind of like wanting to show off, like wanting to show that I'm clever than, that I'm better than. And this can feel really good. Like you can feel really good by saying, hey, you didn't notice that thing, did you? But I did. But that is really not gonna conduce to anything constructive, anything, neither for you nor for the other vet. You just like made a point, and it's not gonna make the situation any better, not for the vet, nor for future patients, right? Because you're just gonna make the other vet really defensive and feel hurt and then start doubting themselves, which is not very nice. And before you criticize other vets, like I remember the first vet I worked with, who was my mentor for years, was this like, to just do never ever slack other vets off because you do not know the story behind it. And as we all know, hindsight is a beautiful thing. So I'm sitting here in the future and I can look back at all these facts and all these stories I know now and all these symptoms that came up after the fact. But the vet that sat there maybe 2 days ago did not have all these blood tests or symptoms or history, maybe that the owner suddenly remembered, or responses to treatment. So when you go to judge another vet and you're doing it from the future you're now in, you cannot judge them because you don't know what information they had in that moment. Like you don't know, you don't know what could have been, what you would have done different in that situation. You don't know how busy they were. You don't know how tired they were. Like really notice that just because now it seems clear as water, it might not have been that clear in that moment for that vet. And also before you give the feedback, like how would you feel if somebody else gave you that feedback? That is really important. No, if somebody else said that to you, if you wouldn't be happy or you would find it hurtful, then don't say it. Find another way to say it. Or maybe you don't even have to say it. It's not important. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to prove you're better than others. You have to, if you want to prove you're a good person and you're a good vet, just keep doing your job well and shine as you are. And that's the way you prove it. You don't have to be better than others, right? And I'm sure all of you that are listening to me would never do this, but it could be that you accidentally do it because you're having a bad day. So I just want to point it out. Now, second, if you're the vet that's receiving the feedback on the criticism, if it lands really hard with you and you feel really triggered, then, and you feel your confidence shaken, like where were you maybe doubting yourself a bit before that happened? You see, when I was shown the x-rays with the bladder stones, I felt a bit of shame because I hadn't realized they were there, but that was kind of it. I didn't feel my confidence shaken because I wasn't doubting myself and how good I was at reading x-ray before that. Another different story would have been if they had somehow found some ultrasound I had done and criticized that. Because if you follow me for a while, you know that my confidence in ultrasound is like 1 out of 10. And because I already doubt myself, if somebody criticized that, that would definitely trigger my nervous system and I would have to sit with that and calm myself down. And I would very likely be defensive because now you're touching something that already hurts me. It's like me saying to you, let's say you're blonde, and I say to you, oh, you know, Karen, like your blue hair does not suit you at all. And you're like, well, my hair isn't blue, so what are you talking about? You don't feel hurt, right? Because what I'm saying just has no relevance to you. On the other hand, if you have worries about your weight and you feel a bit self-conscious, you think you're a bit chubby, and I say to you, oh, did you put a bit of weight on? Or, oh, that shirt is a bit tight, isn't it? That's gonna land straight in your heart like an arrow because you already had thoughts about it and were already feeling bad about it. And now I just go in and rub some salt in it. Okay. So if some feedback really hurts you and really shakes your confidence, you might want to have a look at whatever the issue is, like where you're already doubting yourself. And if the case is you are doubting yourself, let's say that I had been really nervous about this x-ray, well, maybe I need to take some courses in imaging, like maybe I need to fresh up. Honestly, when I learned about x-rays, we literally developed them by hand with these stinker liquids. So now digital x-rays for me is such a luxury, but it's possible that maybe when I studied these specific bladder stones weren't even showing up on those x-rays and had to be diagnosed in another way. So maybe I need to look that up, right? And another thing is like, no, the second thing you want to think about is what can you learn from this? Because no matter how our hackles get up when we feel threatened or we feel criticized, especially if somebody is speaking down to us, which is we can easily feel this. If somebody's senior to us or someone we perceive as better than us criticize us, like how can it help me improve in any way? So for example, my ultrasound skills, if somebody criticizes me, this might actually make me become more diligent in getting better at ultrasounds and being more enthusiastic trying to ultrasound so I can get better at it and learn from it, or whatever they said. If the feedback is always a problem for you and you make it mean a lot about you as a person and as a vet, then you might have to check in with your ego, because in vet med, it's not always about being right. That's not the important thing. It's not important whether you're right or wrong. Like the only thing that matters is the best way we treat our patients, and also learning from our failures on the go, because we're never going to be perfect, right? And science is never going to be perfect. We learn new things all the time. Literally, when I finished studying and I started working at this clinic in a rural village in Spain, I think the anesthesia, that was just injectable psilocin and ketamine, no catheter, just an injection right in the vein, and however long that lasted. We didn't really have gas back then, and that was it. You just have to be really quick. So luckily science has evolved, and now I look back and think, oh my God, what were we doing? No opioids, nothing, right? So I obviously needed feedback on that. And as we learned, we work with other vets and I learned from other vets, then it was like, oh, actually, we should probably do these things. So that feedback is constructive and I need to learn from it. I can't just go, well, I've always used this as an anesthesia, so I'm not going to change, right? So it's really important that we can take feedback unless it's hurtful or somebody really out to kind of like push us down, in which case we need to recognize it and stand up for ourselves, but also what can we learn from it? And also anybody else's opinion about you, as a vet has that, like this vet had an opinion about me being an idiot, right? and his opinion means nothing about me. His whole attitude already means that I am not ready to listen to his feedback. And if I don't want to hear about his feedback, I don't want to hear his opinion about me. And my opinion about me counts much more than his opinion about me. Saying that, I've never met him. I don't know him, so who knows? And one thing that happened for me was I worked with a vet and I realized this, I was kind of on the other end of it where I had to give feedback. So I was working with a vet where I didn't quite agree with how things were being treated. So we had a case that I wanted to take to surgery and I left it for them next morning to take to surgery. And the vet decided to treat medically after I had kind of like made a plan and he went against it, which can happen, right? If circumstances change. But I thought this was a wrong decision. And it just went really against the grain of what I would normally do and what I think the protocol would be for this condition. And then that same week, there was a really old dog hospitalized that I thought, and some of my colleagues thought, that this was a moment to let this dog pass the rainbow bridge. And that's probably what we should be focusing on, slowly transmitting to the owner. And this other vet then kept the dog going for, in my eyes, unnecessary long time. And I could feel myself getting really annoyed. I started like bickering to other vets. Why is he doing that? And I just thought like, wait, you're not walking the talk here. You're just not, you're not being open and following like a good constructive way of getting this feedback to the vet. And so I kind of spoke then, not directly to him, but to his direct superior, so they could kind of address it. And what I said then was, I just want to make sure that in the clinic, we're all on the same level, that we all have the same alignment and we don't treat completely different for the same conditions, because that doesn't make sense, right? It's not, when you're a big clinic, like we should all sort of have the same point of view. Obviously, we're not going to be the same and we can modify treatments, but we should all kind of like decide, like, for example, if you have a stomach torsion, you operate for that. If you have this, you do that, right? And I could feel myself doing what I don't want to do, which is not even giving feedback to him directly, but I was just like yapping to other vets and being annoyed and talking to other staff about it. And I didn't like that. And I recognized that in myself. And I was like, wow, why are you doing this? Because it can just be easier sometimes, not even giving the feedback. You just kind of like complaining to other people about it. But that is so not constructive. Like the other vet never's going to find out. And if they find out, then it's going to be a modified version, probably blown up of whatever you said. Right, and be hurtful, because now you're not doing it face to face, or at least through the channels that should be. So if you have ever been criticized like this by a vet and you felt really triggered, I also want to say that it is very, very normal to feel triggered. Like it or not, being in the veterinary industry is belonging to a tribe. And for humans, being criticized and ostracized by our tribe can feel like death. Because when we lived in caves back in the day, if other people said, oh, Günther there, he's not good at hunting and he's not really giving anything to the tribe, like there was a real risk you would be killed, like klopped to death or kicked out and die anyway, right? So for when you're in the vet med industry, then it feeling suddenly that other people don't think you belong there, that you're doing things wrong and putting you down and criticizing you can feel incredibly scary, very overwhelming, and there can be a lot of emotions going on in there. So I want you to know, if that happens and you feel so anxious and fearful and angry and frustrated, all those emotions are completely normal to feel, because you are just human in a tribe feeling like you're going to get kicked out. And in that case, it's just a question of just calm yourself down, some breathing exercises, just sit with it, realize what's going on, maybe journal on what thoughts are coming up for you. He shouldn't be saying that. What an idiot. I journaled a lot on that dude about the bladder stones. I'm not going to lie. And I also sat with that shame, and I was just like, okay, this is shame and this is frustration and this is annoying at myself, and I can see why I'm doing it, and just like not try to push it away and not react either when you're in that state, because that's just going to escalate the situation. Okay, but if you feel really triggered when you have feedback and it happens again and again, you have to look at how much are you doubting yourself in this case, and why is that happening? And also, why do you need to be right all the time? Like, realize that it's not about being right, it's about what's best for the patient and how can I learn going forward after you processed all the emotions. All right. Hope that was really helpful. Reach out to me if you have had any examples where you used this. And if you found it useful, don't hesitate to forward this episode, share it with a friend that you think might need it. Maybe someone who's going through this right now, who's had a complaint from a colleague, not from a patient, owners. And so they can hopefully listen to it and feel some soothing of their nervous system and find some help. Bye.